Okay, Carmichael, French. I'm going to give you a shortened version of this band's name, and then the banjo player's going to tell you the full name. It's the Red Hot Moldy Fig.
Stompin' Baby Jazz Club of Americano.
Yeah.
The Red Hot Moldy Fig Stompin' Baby Jazz Club of Americano. The Red Hot Moldy Fig Stompin' Baby Jazz Club of Rio Americano.
See, I was going to write him a very large check, except I can't get that whole name on the line. Anyway.
The Moldy Figs will do.
Okay. Anyway, here to entertain you, take it away, guys.
Thank you so much. That was a beautiful, beautiful tune called Under a Blanket of Blue. We're going to continue now with a slow, dirty thing called Ain't Nobody's Business.
Some these days I'm going crazy. I'm gonna get a shotgun and shoot my baby, but it ain't nobody's business if I do. If I should take a notion, or go down there and jump in that ocean, oh, it ain't nobody's business if I do. Well, the Lord, He gave me my own mind of thinking. Oh, just what to do and how much to drink. But it ain't nobody's business. Or if I do. If I attend a church on Sunday and a cabarella all day Monday, it ain't nobody's business if I do. stay out all day Sunday. Well, it ain't nobody's business. Now let's end this song. So much. We did not want to stop filming. Before we move on to our last song, I would just like to introduce to you the members of this fine, fine band. Heading us up on the trumpet, we have Mr. Andrew Stevens. To his left, playing saxophone, we have Lucas Bear. And then Sarah Perlman on the trombone. Back here to my right, the most handsome member of the band, Joshua Kravitz. Or Crab Dog Supreme, as he's known around the streets, on piano. To my left, we have Jarek Rockamora playing bass. And the baby of the group, our junior, Jacob Swedlow on the drums. My name is Devin Courtney Shell. We are the Red Hot Moldy Figs, Stomp Baby Jazz Club of Americano. And our next tune shall be a Louis Armstrong tune called Hotter Than That.
You listen to a lot of Louie, don't you? Yeah, you have a lot of flexibility. And here in the back of the room, one of the things we were saying is you have a very beautiful sound. A lot of guys don't pay attention to their tone quality. And you know, in this style of music, the way they approached the instruments was different than they did later. And it was much darker and rounder sound. And when you started playing, we weren't sure whether you were playing cornet or trumpet, because it had that kind of a sound. And so you're really authentic with your sound, so very impressive. One thing that would have made it more enjoyable for me is none of you need mics. You know, and so mics become, they inhibit you. They don't, and the balance, you know, you got a great rhythm section. And especially, and this is a great room besides, you know. And when you learn to play a room acoustically, you'll find it becomes much more comfortable, you know. And I have to say, your first tune was a surprise, because nobody plays Under a Blanket of Blue anymore. You know, and it's a gorgeous song. It is a gorgeous song. And you probably know your history, but you know, it was introduced by a group called the Castle Loma Orchestra back in the 30s, but you did a beautiful job with it. So, as I said, it's a very different tune. Your soprano sound is marvelous. I am not a fan of the way most people play it today, you know, because it sounds very nasal, and that's the style. You know, they use mouthpieces with a high baffle, and they get that nasal sound. You get a full, rich, round sound, and your pitch is great on an instrument that wasn't made to play in tune. So Yamaha, by the way? Yeah, okay, another great brand, yeah. But you're obviously using a more round chambered mouthpiece, and people don't think about this, but the equipment you use has to go with the style, you know. And jazz, especially in the 50s, got louder. And I remember listening to a pianist from the era saying, you know, first the guitar players started bringing in an amp, and then the bass players said, well, I need an amp. So the bass players started using an amp. And then the piano said, well, I need a mic in the piano. And the drummers, they were using calf heads in those days, and they said, well, we can't cut through this, so they went to plastic heads. And music got louder and louder. And with that, the instruments had to change. Like my alto sax is the first year of the Mark 6s. And it's completely different than the Mark 6s they made 5 or 6 years later. It's a very dark, you know, round sound. But as music got louder, they had to change them so they played brighter. But you're playing equipment that makes you sound authentic to the style, and I love hearing that. So that was probably too long of a way for me to go around explaining that. I want to just ask a couple questions. It ain't nobody's business if I do. It's a great tune. It is an absolutely great tune. And one thing I want to, if you can check it out, it has a fabulous verse that sets up the whole tune. And I would have loved to have heard you play, you know, sing the verse. That would have added a lot to it. The solos were all great, but on that you also need an ensemble, more cohesion in the ensemble to keep it interesting for the audience. And the tune has a natural progression that begs for certain kinds of backup. And you had tenor and trombone, which I thought was great. So I'm going to the lecture that was here just before. I'm going to go off of that lecture. So on that tune, what key are you in? You're in E flat, right? So the first chord is E flat. Okay. What's the second chord? G7. Interesting, because on the E flat chord, the fifth is B flat, right? On the G, what's the third? B natural. What's the next chord? Okay. What now? So what could you be doing when you play that tune? You can have a line going up chromatically. You know what I'm saying? So so you can start on the fifth, on you know, we were saying E flat. I'm forgetting what key we're in that fast chord. You can go from B flat to B natural to the A flat, which means you're going to go to what? C, right? This is concert for you, right? And then the next chord is a diminished, right? So you go to C sharp. So I just want to try, pick up your tenor for a second, right? So let's say either you're singing or you're playing a solo. I guess for big Mark, you're playing a solo, right? So what I want to try, let's see how it sounds, is if you're playing your solo, right? And I love tenor and trombone. It's a great combination. You know, it just, you can do so much with it. But let's try that. Let's try the trombone in tenor, just playing the line I just said. You follow me where I'm going with that? Now let's just see how it sounds. So you can play a solo over it, and you're just going to do sustained tones. You know, hit 1, 2, 3, 4. So the next chord is a diminished, right? Yeah, you're going to go to, yeah. So one more time. 2, 3, 4. So the next, what's the diminished chord? A diminished. So what note did you go to? The last note you were playing was C natural, right? Well, of course, A diminished, C fits, but that's not going to make it sound like it's moving somewhere. Go up to the E flat concert. So all of a sudden you're skipping. You know, see one up half steps, and all of a sudden you skip, right? But one more time, and try it. Like an arrangement. Does it make a difference? And as a soloist, or let's say you're singing, doesn't that feel good to have like something that organized behind you? And then you don't have to stand there, like, you know. And so ensembles, like how you choose your ensembles is really important. You're all great soloists. So leave it, you know, what am I going to say about your soloists? You all play great soloists, right? But inventing things, and the interesting thing is, I hear arrangements a lot of times, and they'll write backgrounds for the singer or for or for a soloist, and it's real complicated. So you're listening to an arrangement, but your ear is constantly going to the background, right? Well, that's taken away from the soloist, you know. And so what you want to do is enhance the soloist. And there's something that's really simple, right? It's really simple to work out. But how did it feel for you? Yeah, so then when you're playing a tune, you know, and you can do the same line at different points. You know, you don't do it every chorus. Of course, that gets old. But as you let's say you're going to the last chorus of the vocal, all of a sudden you start doing that behind the last chorus of the vocal. He has a place to build to. See, I mean, it's all about you know, creating suspense. You know, and elevating, you know, and some bands, what happens is they come in on the first note and they're as high and fast as they can possibly go, and there's no place to go, you know. So working out an arrangement, it's like a painter doing a painting. You know, he's trying to depict something, so everything's there for a reason. You know, and so that's how your arrangement. I always say when you write an arrangement, in the background, it's like you buy a ring and you have a setting for a stone. And the setting is supposed to enhance the stone. So the stone is this whole. Yeah, does that make sense? Yeah. So, and then the other thing with that tune is doing the verse. You know, I think that would make it like really. You got a great voice, and it would really add a lot. Yeah. So. And you're very careful with the sound of your banjo too. It's you know, a lot of banjo players, they play muddy. You're very clear. Your chording is very clear. In that tune, the other thing I want to say is we did it with the horn line. I like to hear Christmas in the rhythm section too. When a lot of people play muddy with chords, and so when you're playing in the front line, you're trying to hear what the progression is, and it just sounds like you can't tell one note from another. There's an interesting interview with Fats Waller, he was a stride pianist, and it was about advice for young budding jazz pianists. And one of the things he mentions is he learned all the Bach 2- and 3-part inventions. And the second thing he says, when you become a jazz pianist for the first 5 years, you should not be allowed to touch the pedals. You know, because he believed that the pedals let you hide a lot of mistakes. You know, he just went very clean playing. But anyway, there's just a suggestion for that tune. Okay, let's go back to Blanket of Blue. Can we play a little bit at the beginning of that? And the other thing I have to say that impressed me, you know, a lot of people don't know what to do with an augmented chord. And how well you played them in your solos. And your lines made sense going to the augmented chord. So as I said, a lot of people go out of their way to avoid songs with augmented. And a lot of times when I'm playing with rhythm sections and the original tune had augmented, they'll play a diminished or something else rather than the augmented. So it's a shame. It's a neat sounding chord. Your ensemble, you know, and I like the beginning with the trombone and soprano sax. Sidney Bechet seemed to do that a lot as well. He did a lot of recordings with Dick Dickinson, and it's a nice combination to contrast. You know, of course, you're in different registers, you know, and that's great. You can bring your part out more, and you can learn the melody and then learn lines that can go in between the phrases of the melody. You know, and then so you know when he's going to breathe, and that you got to remember back in those days, bands played 7 nights a week together, you know, and so you learned when the other guy was going to breathe, when he was going to hiccup, you know, and every little nuance he was going to do, so you knew how to fill it in, you know. But a lot of times, he said, when you're listening to the guy playing the melody, you learn where he's always going to breathe here, he's always going to pause here. And another thing with that arrangement, though, is you might want to think of opening it up with brushes. And then as you go to the last chorus, because you go higher as you go, you got endless chops. So, but then as you can build the arrangement to the end, you know, so you can start the arrangement with brushes and then go to to the sticks later in the arrangement. You know, you would probably sound great singing. So if you ever thought of that, you know, because you're good on the vocals. So, but that, you know, bring the trombone out more. And as I said, when you went to the last 8, now it's all 3 of you playing. First soprano sax, because you know I'm a saxophone player. What can I say? You know, I love Sidney Bechet, and a lot of people, you know, they can't get past the vibrato. But, you know, he always played in tune, and he always played with fire. He only played like he did, you know, and it was part of it was his ego. He wanted to sound only like him. He didn't want to sound like anybody else. So he would play a certain way, and he'd say, well, listen, I'm the only guy doing this, you know. But he was marvelous. But you know who his top student was Johnny Hodges. That was his student. And so a lot of the early Ellingtons, up until 1939, especially the small groups, Hodges was playing soprano. And he was unbelievable on it. You know, he didn't have the vibrato that Bechet had, but he sounded like his alto player. It was that full all the way up. And so, and you might be interested in some of the tunes they recorded that were written for him on soprano, like Pyramid and what was the one I did arrangement? Well, there's several. But you might be interested in looking at some of those Ellington compositions that were done for the soprano, and actually some of the Bechet compositions for soprano, since you're such a great soprano player. Yeah, so it would be a great thing to add to your repertoire. Can we go to the third tune? That's a lot of playing, I know. But, one thing I had a question about the third tune was the ensemble at the end. Now, what can you say about the hot fives and the hot sevens? I mean, Louis often recorded, other than Earl Hines and a few others, the people in the band beside him were not near his caliber, and that's just a fact of life. I mean, and I love Johnny Dodds, and he was the best of the clarinet players that were in the hot fives and sevens. But and Dodds was a great player. But a lot of times in those recordings, the other guys were not in that league, just simply. And who was, right? But the other thing is, and Louis was the star, and so. If you had people closer to his caliber, it might have been the training, But the interesting thing is on all those records is what all the guys do behind him. I always say that, the poor clarinet player, because Louis was often up in the clarinet player's range. And, he had tremendous flexibility in those days, and all that. But it would be interesting to work out those ensembles, maybe even adding some harmony things in your ride-out chords. Because then you could, really build the arrangement. So I guess what I'm saying is the caliber of every one of you individually is the best I've heard. Very high. And I think we can get the ensembles to the same caliber. I'd like to hear it. Can I hear that tune again now? With that, yeah. And you're saying, where am I going to play? And you got two instruments that are in the same range too. So there's a lot of options. You're playing Louis Soul basically, right? So you know what he's going to play. So that gives you one option of where to work around. The other thing that could be very effective, once again, is the trombone and the saxophone doing long chords. And I played one of the first. I guess traditional trad bands that I played with, the reed player always has the first solo. Like, why is it always us? And so night after night it was the same thing. You do it soon, and the first solo would be me, right? And so sometimes at the end of the first ensemble, I would stop and just take a good breath to get into my first solo, and the trumpet player would say, "Don't do that, because you're leaving me hanging the last few bars." And so a lot of times, like especially that break, that tremendous break in the middle, when the downbeat coming in would have something to come in with, and or the stinger right before the break, come up with a chord with his last note going into the break, so you're framing that break, and what that does is draws everybody's attention to the break, and then when the band comes back in and it's everybody going boom, right? Everybody says, "Boy, they know where they're," what was that? It all came in together, and just things that the horn players have to get together without the rhythm section to work these little things out. And you decide, you get together and you say, well, if I'm playing that trumpet part and these two guys are playing just long notes, does that work? Well, maybe you don't like that. Maybe you want a riff behind you. And you tell them. You communicate. One of the interesting things is When did you listen to Louis in the big band era when he had, you know, like the early 30s? When he did those recordings, the band would, you know, it was always him, like the last two choruses out, over the whole big band. And they would play riffs, right? And they were always so simple, but they always propelled the rhythm. You know, they'd be playing like dun 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 dun, you know, and you guys could come up with that stuff.
Actually, we did a riff on the outhead.
Okay. Yeah, it wasn't coming across. I guess we want to. Yeah, want to do the outhead? I was because I had a question about the ending on that too. So go ahead. But yeah, what helped this time through is you were looking at each other. And that's what I would do. Because one thing we were talking about in the back is when different people took solos, everybody else was looking at the soloist. You know what that does? Is it focuses the audience's attention on the soloist. So that helps. But when you're doing the riff, this time you kind of pointed your horns toward each other. And you know, visually it's very effective. And believe it or not, musically it comes across very effective too. It helps you to blend more. And actually, with the volume of everything else, you can play your part. If he's so high, you're not going to bury him at all. So you can actually play it out more. But at the ending, when he's going, I'm not going to make it play. But when you know going into the drum break, I would work out something where maybe you play a climbing line together. Like, you know, it could be just a scale like that, something like that. Come up with some kind of riff that goes to that last note. So it gives, because he's up there anyway, number one, it gives him support, and it introduces the drum break, you know. And then you're going to hold that high note after the drum break, you know, so you can go back to that riff, but real loud, but have a way to finish it, you know. So after the drum break, you know, it could be like dun 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 dun, yeah, something like that. You know, it's nothing complicated. You know, you're playing on the gig, you got to remember all this stuff. You know, and we love the fact you're doing it without music. But you know, you're supporting the trumpet, and you become part of the show, and it really gets the audience into it. You know, so, you want to try it after the drum break? Give it a, you know, just do a rip to the last note, like hit a stinger. But you know, you went after the drum break, you went back to the riff, right? Bring it up. You know, you need to raise the harmony to, you know, so you're playing higher notes, or bring it out more. Yeah. And just try, just the two of you do the drum break, and then you know, you without the trumpet, everybody else. Yeah. If you're that high, you have no place to do a riff. So I would go and stay an octave lower, right? But when you get to your last note, go 5, and then go rip up to an octave. You know, and then because then you have a place to go. You know, and you don't need to be that high because he is. Yeah, try one more time. That'll be great. The bass on that, you know, if you go climbing right with him, yeah. And bring it, you can bring it out like that, right? Yeah. And it's just thinking of the mouth more open and relaxed, yeah. And you know, you got two soprano, you know, treble clef instruments. So you're gonna very, just, yeah. Put your bell up and see, you see the exit sign? In fact, let's try that with it, you know, that same thing. If the two of you play to the exit sign, that's who wants to hear you play. Right, same thing. Yeah, you know, you might say, well, my part's too low, change harmony notes. You know, but you know, every band that got together today, the one question I asked was, does the horn section get together as a horn rehearsal? And boy, that really makes a difference, because it's amazing what you'll come up with. And you all know your chords, and see, that's going to make it even better. But, and I was telling the other groups, I used to work with a group, and we had a steady Sunday night, and every Sunday afternoon, the trumpet player and I would get together, and we'd work out new tunes, but we'd work out arrangements. Nothing written down, just what they call head arrangements, you know, off the top of your head. But it was all like working out the harmonies that we'd play. And it really just, it made the gig so much more enjoyable, and made every tune sound different, so they don't all sound the same. But very wonderful, absolutely wonderful. What an exciting group you all have. Just fabulous. And I like your announcer's voice. So,